I'm Joy Reid, again, one of the co-founders of National Association for Single and Divorced Families, and I am here again with Sherry Platt. She's been on with us a couple of times. The first time was to talk about something called the Motherhood Penalty, and the second was to discuss the career services that she provides for our members. But I wanted to bring Sherry back on and go into more depth regarding the Motherhood Penalty and really take some time to focus on that, because I think it's a very, very multi-layered, multifaceted topic. And I also love how you're calling it Motherhood Penalty, but also Motherhood Advantage.
Correct.
And I think that mindset is so important. And with that, I am going to be quiet because this is your topic, and I just want you to be able to expound on it.
I want you to be able to ask questions.
Oh,
as we
I
go
will.
into. Okay.
You know that.
Okay,
I will
great.
ask questions.
So, first, let's give an overview of the Motherhood Penalty and then how we can make it into an advantage. So, the Motherhood Penalty is based on the idea that when women take time out to have children, that they are financially penalized through the rest of their lives. And the more children they have, the higher the penalty, and that this really creates an economic disadvantage for women. I also want to say that the motherhood penalty is important for women who choose to not have children, because they're the same penalties that come for being a mother is perception in a patriarchal culture, a patriarchal work culture. By the way, I use the word patriarchy, but I also want to be clear that men are penalized by this too, especially men who take time off to stay at home with the children. So women who make the choice to not have children are penalized because there is an assumption that they don't really mean it.
Right, you'll change your mind.
You'll change your mind, so we can't promote her because she'll change her mind and we'll invest all this time and energy and then she'll just leave. So, so it affects all women, really. It really does. So that is the motherhood penalty. Do you have any questions about that?
No, because I know you're going to go
Correct.
with a couple of things, and so then I'll
Okay. So I have notes here too, just to stay on track. So I want women to walk away from this conversation with 5 strategies for challenging the motherhood penalty. And the first one is that we really have to look within ourselves and become aware of our thinking. So 90 to 95% of all decisions that we make are unconscious because we are running on automatic pilot thanks to habituated thinking and neural programming and cultural belief systems and et cetera, that have defined a woman's trajectory throughout their lives. So before we can really have this conversation and turn motherhood into an advantage, we really have to slow down and become aware of how our thinking affects us ourselves. For example, did you want to have kids? Not you personally, but not all women want to have children. But that is not always acceptable in society. A lot of women automatically think that once they have children, they have to stay home with them. And then if they do stay home with them, there's some guilt about not building out their career. And there's also I call them HOTS, habits of thought. There's also a neural that if I go back, I can't work full time, or if I work full time, I still have to be responsible for the children. And oh, by the way, I also have to be responsible for my parents. So I also call this the good girl syndrome, right? Having to be the good girl to everybody. Right, because women are hormonally designed through oxytocin and estrogen to bond, and anything that there's a sort of an unconscious belief that if they say no or aren't a good girl, it creates a separation. There's a great book written by 2 women Harvard MBAs, Why Women Don't Ask. And it was about why women don't ask for more money and salaries. And this is the same thing. And that book's probably 15 years old at this point. So the very first thing I do with all the women I work with is, whether they're mothers or thinking about becoming mothers or they're just my regular clients, we start with the HOTS, the habits of thought. And what are their belief systems about work, about motherhood, about relationship. So that's where we start. Once we have I believe that when people become aware of their belief systems, then they get the ability to choose whether they want to hold on to those or whether to challenge them. Right.
Right.
And new belief systems. And we live at a pretty amazing time. I mean, it's a difficult time for sure, but we're also at a time where I think many paradigms are being called up into question. And most of them are around relationships. Many of them are around relationships, polyamory, relationship, anarchy. It goes on and on. It's a very interesting time to be alive.
And like you and I have talked about, you know, and you have also brought up co-parenting agreements between people who aren't wed or together or romantically involved.
That is one of them. So we'll jump to that. I call it boundary and parenting agreements. So I just met a young woman the other day who's probably 26, 27, was actually breaking up with her boyfriend when she realized she was pregnant. So now they're back together and trying to figure out what to do. And my advice to her was, it doesn't matter whether you get married or not. Have a parenting agreement. These are legal agreements that two people decide together on how to be parents to their children and what that looks like. So if she says to him, look, I'm 26 years old, I'm in the process of building out my career, I am not ready to stop. What are we going to do about that? So how are you? And he might say, well, I'm in the same positions. Okay, great. So then how do we make this work? We have it. So there's not this assumption that she's going to stay home, he's going to stay home on both sides. And it's like, how, and you decide that before the child is born, because I got to tell you, when these kids come into the world, they suck your brain and the life out of you. So it's better to make these decisions before you get the brain fog and the lack of sleep, etc. And there is a trend now to make these agreements legally and binding. You can also do this within a marriage. So it's funny because ironically, not funny, is that this will happen if you get divorced. You will have a agreement if you get divorced, NASDF. So let's.
I don't know why I laughed. It's like if you're just sitting here talking.
Because it's because the whole conversation. I mean, the whole product, another product that you're offering is like, what happens if, the person who's paying the child support can't show.
You mean for our insurance product, support insured? Yes.
Right. So the whole purpose behind that is that now we're actually needing insurance to ensure that the person who says they're going to pay will pay. Right. So.
And that if something happens, they're covered.
Correct.
Right.
And this is actually a conversation that they can have even before, while they're getting married. It can be an agreement. There's a partnership agreement, and then there's a parenting agreement. And your parenting agreement can even include that insurance policy. So it's a different way to think about it. But when I talk to people about this, they really get lit up. They like the idea of having not just a partnership agreement, but a parenting agreement, and make it legally binding.
And it's so interesting because we don't encourage the conversation around that. I mean, that's
correct.
So you and I have talked about being clear about how we know each other as we go forward in these interviews. And so for those so Sherry and I actually were married. We were together for almost 10 years. We raised her two beautiful, beautiful boys who were the best things that ever happened to me. But you and I talked about, when we started dating, we didn't discuss family, we didn't discuss parenting, we didn't discuss anything. We just sort of jumped into family. And we didn't have any conversation around boundary, limit, responsibility, discipline, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we were very, very lucky because Sherry and I have very similar parenting styles, and we did family really well. But there still should have been a conversation, and
I think that's super important as the step parent too.
Well,
it gets even a layer deeper when.
Well, it is because it becomes that whole. I mean, like I think I've always said, like Elijah, our youngest, wanted to be parented, but our oldest, I was always very clear, he let me parent him. And there was a limit. And with step parents, it's a very, very tricky relationship because you're not their real parent. But you are. But you're not. And I was also the last one on the scene.
Right. But it's also sticky if there's not a process that where you actually two people sit down, even with a potential third party if it's necessary. Somebody who specializes in this as a mediation and says, okay, so Joy's coming into this, what is her responsibility? What is your responsibility? Then bringing the children in. So there was never that conversation.
No.
I think that's pretty accurate for most step-parent families.
I think it's accurate for all, no one has the parenting, which was kind of my point.
Exactly.
Is that, and I was also lucky because the boys are the best boys in the world, right? So there was never any, you're not my mom, I don't have to, from them, ever. And we just all loved each other so much. But there should be parenting conversations when a potential step whatever enters the picture, when two people are about to get married and have children, when two people are breaking up but there's a child coming in. There need to be parenting agreement conversations, and we don't even talk about that.
Right.
And parenting styles differ wildly, and I think we make this assumption, everybody would parent the way that I parent. No.
And it's not even how one parents.
Correct.
If we're bringing it back to the motherhood advantage, is the discussion about where does career fit in the
and responsibility, therefore.
Correct. Exactly.
Especially since childcare is so astronomically expensive.
It really is.
And a lot of the decision that women make, the decision that a lot of women make to stay home many times is fueled by, childcare is so expensive, it doesn't actually behoove me to work for the child care cost.
Right, and that is a belief system that is based on fact. It is also still very hurtful because the woman stays, mostly the woman, it can be the man too.
Right.
They stay home and they lose the momentum of a career. So I actually remember when I got divorced the first time, I was with an accountant. And it was the only time I used him because he was our joint accountant. And he knew my ex-husband's financial status. And he said to me, you will struggle probably for the next 20 years of your life because while you were home, his career continued with momentum, right? So he got promotions and he was actually able to make a career transition. Then he was able to get promotions and he kept going and going and going and going. And I stopped. And when I left the marketplace, I was making a lot of money. So and I wanted to do it. But did I?
Right. Well,
I didn't question my
habits
beliefs.
Of thought.
Habits of thought. I didn't question it back then. So there's a way in which we really lose this momentum, and this is what women can actually risk being in poverty afterwards, and this will affect their children as well, and especially if there's a contentious divorce, which unfortunately there is most of the time. So, okay, so we have those two strategies down, parenting agreements and awareness of your thinking. The next thing I want to bring up is being proactive in your career strategy. We've never been taught how to plan our careers, right? So you go to high school, or you start at the beginning. What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a flower. Oh, I can't be a flower. You got to be a doctor. You got to be a lawyer, which, by the way, are not particularly lucrative careers anymore. So
not a very small percentage of become.
So we want to learn how to have a proactive career strategy, and we really want to teach this to our children as well, because I don't think the schools do a very good job at it, if at all. So a proactive career strategy just means that we stop making the employer the judge, jury, and master of our careers, and we take ownership so that when you get a job, it's done strategically. Even if it's going from an ice cream store to a pizza parlor, it's what skills do I need to learn? What skills do I want to learn next? And that goes from job to job. So what happens is we often tend to go from one job to another job. We just want the same thing, and that's actually a mistake. We want to have a strategy about, okay, where is the market going? Do I need to learn artificial intelligence? I mean, how about all those computer programmers that I used to hire that thought they'd be employed for the rest of their lives?
Right.
Bye-bye. Yeah. Right? I mean, they're doing okay, but the demand for computer programmers has declined dramatically because AI can do a lot of it. Right? So that's okay as long as we don't hide under the belief that I have to do the same thing all the time, and that you're actually strategic. Okay, I have these skills, the market's changing in that direction, and that's actually, it has to be interest. You don't want to just go along with the trend either. So I'm going to look into that, and I'm going to see how the next job will leverage my career. So it's not just going for financial security, which, by the way, doesn't exist. The minute you rely on an employer to give you financial security, you've lost your financial security, because then you give all the power to the employer to be able to decide staying, going, I'll give you a raise, but only if you do what I tell you to do, right? And so it really takes your financial security out of your own sense of self. So just and honestly, it is helpful to work with a career strategist such as myself at least once, so that you can learn what a career strategy looks like. And for women, if you decide you do want to take time off, or for men, if they decide that they do want to stay home and raise the children, that's cool. But I don't think that you should ever stop working or stop thinking in terms of leveraging your skills. What if your partner dies? What if your partner leaves you and you now need to show up financially for yourself and your children? So my personal and professional belief is that you should always remain employed in some capacity when you're parenting, period.
Well, what I love about that, when you and I spoke about this the first time on this, you brought up all the ways that women actually do keep working when not employed monetarily, that they don't think about, like planning PTA or PTSA fundraisers, volunteering on certain boards, volunteering with certain organizations, that all of that is still maintaining a skill set and work.
It is.
It's all still work.
It is. And I would still like to see women plugged in financially. Yeah.
No, so would I. I'm bringing that back, saying that because there are a lot of women where this will help, and then there are a lot of women going, well, that's like closing the barn door to the horse got out.
Yep.
I've been out of work for 8 years, 9 years. What do I do now?
Well, all skills have value. And so just if there's not a dollar attached to it, it doesn't mean it's not valuable. So another great conversation, I was sitting next to a woman at my roommate's children's fundraising event. So it's a mom who was a VP in banking, and she took some time off to be with her kids, and now she said, well, I'm not working at all. And I said, well, I understand your husband has a plumbing business. She said, well, he does. I said, are you helping him? She goes, well, yeah. And I said, well, what do you do? And she said, well, I run the office, I send out the bills and the invoices, and I call people to confirm appointments. I said, so you are working for him? And she said, well, I'm not getting paid. I said, you're working for him. Maybe she should think about getting paid. Right? So
Yeah.
I said, so she said, but it's not what I thought I would be doing. I said, I understand, but it's still a leverage point. You're still gaining new skills that you didn't have before that you can leverage for future positions. So part of this is also understanding that sometimes we don't pursue the path we thought we were going to do. Parenting can take us off many different paths, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing.
Right.
If you use it strategically.
Right.
So let's see. The next is connection. Continue to build out your network. Never leave LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn profile, continue to develop it. Every new mom you meet, every pediatrician that you see, every person that you connect to is someone that you should be building out on your LinkedIn profile. The people that you meet now, they may not seem like they're important professionally, but you never know who their parents are, who their spouses are, what their contacts are, the teachers. It's just you don't want to isolate, and I think it's really, really easy when you're a parent to isolate.
Oh, yeah. With a young, yeah.
So it's important to. I know there may be a lot of exhaustion associated. I remember very well what it was like to have children young and et cetera. So, and even as teenagers we begin to get some of our freedom back. But then it can be hard to think about, how do I re-enter a different world? So it's really important that you continue to connect, that you continue to be in a tribe, that you continue to thrive through meeting other people, and to, if you have to, force yourself to not isolate. It's really important to remain connected to the world.
Right.
And then the final point is action and activism. And that means that there are so many laws and rules and corporate policies that are actually against parents. And there's a lot of there's like the Chamber of Mothers. I think it's Chamber of Motherhood. I mean, I'm embarrassed because I go to their meetings and I've spoken there. But they're an advocacy group, and their whole is, we're the only Western country that has an unpaid leave, and it's only 3 months. Yeah. So everywhere else it's a year, and you're paid. So it often feels like there's a real it's interesting for a culture that's supposed to promote family.
Yeah.
Most of the policies that particular political party espouses is actually anti-family. Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying that it's important that our voices are heard, that we stay active, that we ask for what we want. And when you're going for a job, if you've decided you want to work full-time and you think you're going to be a parent or you are a parent, ask the important questions of the employer. That is a form of activism, which is saying, what are your parenting policies? What are your parenting leave policies? Ask the questions directly. Do you promote parents?
Well, I think that's when we said this is a part of activism. Mm-hmm. We think of activism, I think mm-hmm. of activism as what I do for others, right? How I show up with my voice for others, how I yell for others. Mm-hmm. I never think of activism as how do I show up for me? How do I yell for me? How do I use my voice for me?
And knowing that when you do that for you, you're doing it for everybody else. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So it's an important is that we remain, again, this is the tendency is from exhaustion that you want to isolate. You just want to be left alone. You just want to watch the television and eat the popcorn, which I still love to do. So it's right. So it doesn't have to be like going out there every day, but maybe once a week, make sure you're getting out and talking to people. And when you talk to people, make connections. Come back and put them on your LinkedIn profile. Yeah. It will serve you later.
Well, I love when you said that because we think we tend to. And we're cultivated to do this, mm-hmm. to think very black and white, very narrow, and it wouldn't, if I was a mother of, say, like a 9-year-old and I'm looking to re-enter the workforce, I'm not even going to be thinking about LinkedIn because, well, what do I have to put on there? My last job was 10 years ago, mm-hmm. and I don't even know what I could find, especially for people who have very niche fields, mm-hmm. right, who aren't just, okay, well, I work in administration, I work in, I work in offices, but who are, very, very, it's a very niche career. Mm-hmm. They could think, well, what's the point? Like, I don't even know how, but when you're building your network is everybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are people on my LinkedIn that are not in my field at all, mm-hmm. and yet I really appreciate and know what they do and love what they do, mm-hmm. and so I've connected with them, and through them I've connected with other mm-hmm. people. Yeah. Because we forget this in our society, in our world, we are all interconnected, all of us. What affects one affects 50 others. Mm-hmm. Whether directly or indirectly from ripple effect. And our interconnectivity is what allows us to do things in our life. How many years have they been saying it's not what you know, it's who you know. Right. Because you never know who you know is going who they're going to know and what they're going to be able to talk to you about. Yeah.
I always call it the circles of influence. Right, so you have your internal circle of influence, which is your immediate people, siblings, parents, if you're talking to them, best friends, etc. And then you have the next circle of influence, which are sort of the people that are connected to them, or it could be other friends, community members, mm-hmm. store shopkeepers, coffee shop owners, and it gets big. Right, so you just want to make sure that you're still in the world, still connecting. And still talking. I mean, LinkedIn is only a small part of it, but the bigger part is to acknowledge that every person you meet is a connection that you can leverage down the road. And I don't mean to sound that as a cold, harsh thing.
It's just reality.
It's just reality. Yeah. And they can use it too. I mean, it's both ways. So those are the 5 strategies, and that's how motherhood penalty will dissipate if you start to be more strategic, look at your own belief systems, have boundaries and partnerships, parenting agreements in place, and remain active and connected mm-hmm. to other people. And when you can, be involved, have a voice, get involved in other organizations, etc., and ask questions when you go on interviews or when your partner comes in and they've worked all day and say, has anybody asked anything about the parenting agreements, about not parenting agreements, I'm sorry, but about parenting policies, etc. at work, and you never know where it's going to come or how it's going to come. So I hope this is helpful.
No, it is. It very much is. And I think also what this enables too, which, I ages ago when we were talking about whether or not we would have a kid, and decided not to, whatever, and we were talking about it one evening, and I said, I've realized, through raising the boys, through all of this, I've realized something. I can be a good mama, and I can be a good wife, and I can be a good me, but I don't think I'm so good at being all three at the same time. And I think a lot of women, the first thing to fall by the wayside is the us part. We start to lose our identity. Our identity becomes mama and wife, mama and wife. And it's very easy for us to shrink our identity down to that, and our worth and our value down to that. And all of these points that you've just mentioned aren't just useful and helpful in career, work, life. They're helpful in helping women stay in touch. And I mean to keep saying women, because you're right, this does affect men, but it helps them to stay in touch with who they are too, and to keep that part alive. Every single thing that you have mentioned. To remember that they are an individual, they have a voice, they have needs, they have wants, they have life, they have essence, they have strength, they have power, they have brilliance, they have wisdom, they have truth. So.
And it matters.
And it matters.
Yeah. They matter. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Ms. Sherry Platt. As always, it is a beautiful pleasure.
Same here. Thank you.